I'm going to have everyone, and this is a little risky to do post-lunch, but I'd like you to all close your eyes for a minute. I'm feeling sleepy. No. And I want you to imagine what the future looks like. Is it crystallizing? You've got it? Okay, open your eyes. Does it look something like this? Or maybe like this? Because, you know, when we imagine the future, we like to picture ourselves in the future. So we like that mirror that we can see. We're kind of in this Lacanian mirror phase of the IoT right now, where we want to see ourselves. And when we imagine technology, we imagine it kind of effortless, this one-click vision of the future that Amazon has that relies on all of our data and apparently storing our videos forever, brings us down to zero-click reality. And, you know, kids have already hacked this, by the way. So, I don't know, maybe this isn't as far up as we think. But when we think about Internet of Things, it's those invisible butlers, the deferent, you know, assistants that are just going to be in the background and make everything work for us. But something I think is missing from this picture. This is from a great series by Eric Pickersgill where he takes pictures of people and removes the phones from the pictures. And of course, it looks idiotic. What's missing? It's emotion. So when we see stuff like this, we think, what is up with these Boston Dynamics guys anyway? Why are they so cruel to the robots, kicking it like this? I just want to, it makes me so mad. And then, you know, we've developed even closer relationships with some of our things. This guy I'm a little worried about, but, you know, it could happen. And of course, we channel our emotions through technology. So who hasn't been in one of these situations here? I'm going to do a little short exercise with you guys. So I want you to think about your favorite app. And think about the emotions related to that. I'm just going to throw out some easy ones here first. So if I say the name of this app, you just tell me what emotions you're thinking about. How about Instagram? Happy, beauty. Square, jealousy. Shame. You know what I'm talking about. What about Tinder? Okay, we don't have to go there. And we have all these emotions that are created by technology. We don't know what to call them. We have this as a lovely project trying to name our emotions. Most of them are not about technology, but we all know this feeling. And I've been trying to collect and chronicle some of these emotions as well. This is something that occurs to me quite frequently. I have a case of cyberchondria, and I have to look up exactly what it is. In a past life, I was studying Russian and East European literature, and there was this emotion, because other languages have emotions that are different from ours, and there's this emotion that all my Czech friends would say, "Pam, you will never understand the emotion of litost." It's this feeling of shame that when you suddenly see yourself from outside of yourself, but now I see this like every week on Spotify Weekly. And of course, you know, we're given some options. These might be some of the new emotions of the internet. I don't know. But most of these emotions are kind of negative. I mean, I don't know if we have all this variation that Grumpy Cat has from truculent to querulous. Mostly our negative emotion about the internet is anger. That's the one that's been consistent. That's the one that's most often tracked on social media, from flame wars to trolls to now sad being the new mad. But of course, we don't have that many good ways of expressing this emotion. Only recently were we given a few more feelings, you know, beyond like. And we don't know how to manage these feelings when we're online. So we make flow charts like this. Maybe it's going to help us kind of get through it. But the bottom line is we can't really connect to the internet in this way. So along comes the new wave of emotion and IoT that's coming along. And you've probably heard a little bit about some of this. It's all these sensors that can either be on our body in various ways or detecting emotion through other ways, like through our voice or through text. They don't have to be actually worn. And these emotions are kind of distilled according to Paul Ekman's 5 emotions that he identified about 30, 40 years ago when he distilled all of facial expressions into these 5 kind of overall categories. You might be more familiar with these from Inside Out, same emotions. And we can detect them in a few different ways. So first there's natural language. We know this already from chatbots and messenger apps trying to detect from our language and make inferences based on that. And of course, now this is being mapped to emotion. So on a simple level, we have the hedonometer. This is done by the Computational Story Lab at University of Vermont. And what they did is behind the scenes, figured out what are the happy words and what are the sad words, and traced that through conversations on Twitter. And so you can see kind of slice of recent history and the mood in the US. IBM Watson has taken this a step further and taken those 5 emotions and put them into these kind of 5 buckets and taken our text and analyzed it so we can know how people are feeling, if you're 30% happy or you're 20% sad or any kind of mix of emotions. And there's lots of different things we can do with those. We can make cool visualizations of poems. That's really awesome. William Blake. But maybe not so useful. And we can infuse our chatbots with greater empathy and feeling. So this is Xiaoyi's, very popular in China. And this particular chatbot can detect emotion from the words that you type in. So that's one way. And people are, of course, she's holding workshops on how to survive a breakup and how to fall in love and all kinds of different things. So that's text. That's one way that is coming along, that emotion detection is going to be integrated into Internet of Things. There's vocal intonation. So looking at the patterns of our voices and trying to map that, again, to these emotion categories. So the main player here is Beyond Verbal. And I'll let you guess who's talking in this one. But you can see it's identifying a few core emotions. And this is already being used in customer service apps like this one, so that customer service representatives can manage emotion through calls. So they're already doing a lot of emotional labor without this technology. Now this is adding a layer that maybe will take some of the responsibility off of them. Probably the biggest thing that we're seeing is facial expression. This is getting a lot of play right now in the press. There's a lot of big companies looking at this. It derives from some technology that we all know about mapping the face and figuring out, tagging people in photos. This is one of my favorite examples. This is from a recent hackathon that Kairos sponsored, and a 13-year-old girl made this app for her grandmother who has Alzheimer's and based it on facial detection. So that's all well and good, but now these systems are being trained to detect emotion. And again, we see our same kind of emotion categories appearing again and again. And this is being used to shape our experience of not too many things right now, mostly games. So if our game here, Nevermind, which is one of the first games to use this kind of emotion sensing technology, facial recognition, and some physical signals, detects that you're calm, you get a much less scary view than if you're stressed out. And of course, also, of the 500 or so patents around facial coding for emotion, just enough research of ineffective computing around autism spectrum, PTSD. People who have trouble understanding what emotions they're feeling, or when a certain feeling is going on, or communicate those feelings to other people. So this is a rather fanciful project by Microsoft called Mood Wings. The butterfly flies as to signal some emotion is coming on. Of course, whenever we have any kind of sensing device, we love to hook it up to the babies and possibly the pets too. So we have a device like this that's called Spratling, that was just bought by Mattel, that will help you understand whether your baby is having a hungry cry or a really angry cry. Although I think you could probably tell a really angry cry without the monitor. And it's being used in concerts for fun stuff, so people are wearing the wristbands, and you can see that some of the emotion is displayed in the venue itself to give people an idea of the energy of the room and what's going on and how people are feeling. And you can see kind of this in action right here. Good thing you don't have the sensor bands on. Applications. So those are kind of fun, or they're kind of for mental health. Once we get out of those two realms, it's pretty hard to know what to do with this stuff. This is an experimental app called People Keeper, and it works on a physical sensor that senses your emotion when you're hanging out with people. This is kind of how it works.
We only have so much emotional bandwidth
Bring it in.
in limited time.
What's the phone?
Our social circles are widening. All those relationships
Anything in general that makes you excited, just
can be overwhelming. Now there's an app. People Keeper tracks your physical and emotional response while you're hanging out, and it analyzes the data to identify who stresses you out, makes you excited, sad, or happy. See how your relationships stack up, and let People Keeper find the ones that work for you. It'll automatically manage your relationships, so you don't have to. Scheduling time with people that make you feel good, and blocking the ones that don't. Forget fake friends, failed romance, and FOMO. Optimize your social life with People Keeper.
Well, okay, so we don't know how we feel about that. And there's a lot of questions being raised by this. But the dream is that we'll have robots like Pepper, which is an emotion-sensing robot that takes multiple signals from your face, from your voice, from text, maybe from physical signals, and works with humans to learn. So in Japan, Pepper's being sent to high school to learn from the high school kids. And then, of course, the next phase is that the big robot teaches the little robots, and then first thing they do is they learn how to dance. And then they take care of our grandparents. So I don't know. I mean, we can see how some of this is working. You know, this all comes out of this new field called effective computing that originated not too long ago, back in 1995 with Rosalind Picard. And the idea is that we'd have all these different sensors that could pick up emotions from various cues and recognize those and then interpret those. So we have those two things going, right? We have sensors, and it's putting them in these rather big buckets of 5 emotions. We have way more emotions than that, but never mind. And then filtering those, figuring out which ones are important and which ones aren't, and adapting or recommending some actions. So, you know, this can work pretty well. Like if you have a simple tool like Mood Notes, where it's tracking from your physical signals your emotions, and you get to journal a little bit about your emotions, as you would in, say, cognitive behavioral therapy, that works pretty well. It combines the sensing and it gives you some agency as well. This is being kind of translated with a more supervised AI by Coco, which is an app that takes those kind of inputs and then asks for some human input around it to to give you some advice or let you kind of learn from other people. And there's been more experimental visions of that where all these sensors come together in a way that can help us out, help us learn and understand our emotions.
I'm Ellie. Thanks for coming in today. I was created to talk to people in a safe and secure environment. I'm not a therapist, but I'm here to learn about people and would love to learn about you. I'll ask a few questions to get us started. And please feel free to tell me anything. Your answers are totally confidential. Are you okay with this?
Yes.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
That's good. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Los Angeles.
Oh, I'm from LA myself.
So okay, I think, A, it's a little creepy to see what we look like through the computer's point of view, but B, this could help people that are not able to or not comfortable with seeing a therapist. And there have been studies using this approach, and it seems like it's panning out. But then once we take it over into the consumer realm, it just gets more complicated. So we have things like this, which is mood metric. It's a giant ring on your hand, kind of like a mood ring. And apparently it lets you rate your hugs. So they only got to a 43. And I'm assuming that's on a 100-point scale. I don't know. That looks like a better than a 43 score to me. So afterwards, we'll all hug each other, and then we'll rate it on a 100-point scale and see how that goes. There have been studies on the filters that we use in Instagram and trying to map, well, which ones correlate with people who have kind of a neutral state of mental health and which are depressed. This is through, again, computational story labs. So they gathered all this data about people who were depressed versus non-depressed, and I guess you could probably guess which filters correlated more strongly with depression than the ones that didn't. But now that we know, the darker ones, now, in case you didn't guess, and I don't know, now what are you going to do with that? So you know that maybe everyone in this room, we're going to avoid using those dark filters or think twice about those, or get really comfortable with being emo or goth or whatever and going with the dark filters. But if you take this to the next level, there was a program that tried to do this on Twitter called Samaritan's Radar, where it detected emotion from people's texts and tried to identify who was depressed and who wasn't. And presumably you could create sort of a support community around the person that's depressed. That's great when it works out, but what if you're just having a bad day or the detection is a little bit off because it's kind of a blunt instrument? It raises a lot of questions that we're going to have to grapple with pretty soon. So probably at this point, though, you're wondering, like, how well does all this stuff work anyway? So this is the point where I've experimented on myself, and you're going to learn so much about me that it's going to be uncomfortable for the next, 10 minutes. So I tried out all this stuff because I'm like, well, how well does this work? How far off are we looking? First, I did a kind of mood tracking app called Felix. There's tons of these that work with a wearable and then give you some options of coloring your moods and things like that. And, okay, well and good. I don't know how many other people are using it, but they're all angry and depressed. So I guess that correlates with our feeling about the internet in general. So that's something. Then I looked at Beyond Verbal, and I was like, okay, let me try this out in a few different situations. So you can see this big example that we're looking at here. This is my voice when I'm talking to Alexa. So I guess when we're talking to the robots, we speak a little bit like a robot in these situations, whereas some of these other ones I'm reading to my daughter or I'm having a conversation and the moods come out differently. So maybe that works, but maybe we've uncovered something that's not so comfortable about these emotions. Then next I tried the facial coding, and I enlisted my littlest daughter for this one. So you can see, okay, the smile, that's pretty good. It got her pretty well. Then that next one, it really didn't know. I mean, is that disgust? I don't know. If it is, I'm parenting all wrong. And then that one there, I mean, duck lips. I guess it just didn't get duck lips as an emotion, so that needs to be added. And then I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to try that People Keeper app, see what that's like with my wearable. So if any of you are married, you will instantly understand my relationship with Steve here. Yeah. And of course, it gave me some really great suggestions as I'm goofing around with it on the train, you know, texting to get a ride home. It told me to do this. Yeah. So maybe there's a way to go with that. Then I tried, okay, I'm going to try IBM Watson text analysis. That seems pretty great. And it does give you some idea a little bit because it's trying to map, you know, what you are saying to certain emotions in the moment. This was an attempt at like humor or irony, which is probably the second most common emotion on the internet. I mean, that's how we cope with our anger, is through dark memes and irony. So I don't know if it quite got it. But then the idea is that once it gathers enough emotions from you, this sort of coalesces into your core personality. And it made some guesses about my personality from here using one of the models that we have for that in psychology, which is called Ocean, the Ocean model. And then I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to use the evil Cambridge Analytica on myself and see what that does. And I came out, so it took 60 or so of my Facebook likes and came up with this. So I'm kind of gender neutral. That's cool. I'm cool with that. And tried to come up with some kind of personality score for this, which then made me curious, what are my Facebook likes and ad preferences? So I went back to look at that. Apparently, it involves a lot of dental floss. And I don't know how that factors into the whole personality thing. But of course, there are other tools that will let you gain some insights. Crystal is one of them you can use in your communications, and it tries to detect the tone of your text. And I don't know if it gives you a consistent personality, because here, this is my text, and I feel like this is pretty close to my personality. But then on Twitter, oh wait, I'm this other person, which of course we all are, right? We're all different people, different selves in different spaces. And so, okay, I'm not quite sure about that, but that was kind of an interesting exercise. And then I thought, well, this whole emotion sensing thing, maybe this is all overrated. Maybe I should just change my own emotions. So there's this great device. It looks like a plastic potato chip you can attach to your head. Does not look really cool. Like, that's going to be me. My chip on my head. So I put it on, and there's two modes. There's calm, and then there's like energy. So I thought I'd try calm, because I tend to skew more towards energy. And I'm like, okay, let's see if this really works, and it can make me calm. And I got a really badly concentrated headache right here, and it lasted for like a day, which sent me into cyberchondria. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the ultimate solution with this is that we're just going to have cool 80s hair pieces and makeup that will let us avoid all the emotion detection, because it gets us so wrong. This is a great, this CV Dazzle, this is a great project, but of course I probably, if I dug around, you know, a little bit, I probably could come up with this stuff. Or maybe we'll instead just make our robots more emotional and I don't know how this is going to pan out, but I really like this experiment called NeedyBot, which we can watch. Same Kickstarter music, they all are the same.
I think the most important interaction that can exist between a human and technology is like emotion. If we can get a robot to connect with people and to create a really profound sort of emotional connection between them, that's where we would learn the most about how technology in general and humans interact.
If robots had puppies, it would look like Needybot.
This is a blend of art and science in a 2-foot package.
Needybot is a robot that we built that is intentionally not able to do a lot itself.
Needybot can't answer the phone.
It can't push the elevator buttons.
Can't walk up the stairs.
If Needy falls over, Needy needs to be picked up.
There's just so much it can't do.
So, okay, maybe we're going there with this, or maybe we'll have to learn to recognize robot emotion, like with Cosmo and all of the complicated facial expressions that Cosmo has, which I'm still just trying to learn about. Whatever the case, we're going to have to start learning about this stuff because Apple bought Emotion, which is facial coding for emotion. All of the OSs are going to have this baked in within a couple of years. And we're all going to be probably opted in through terms and conditions, and we are all, so we'll be on the receiving end of it, but we also will have to design for it. And this is going to test us because, you know, we're like, okay, how do we solve this? We love to solve problems. That's our methodology. And with emotion, it's like, we can't do it because emotions are extremely complicated. And it's not something that's easy to sort out. So what I'm going to try to do is give us just a few guidelines to think about and work with as this is coming along. So I think the first thing that's really important is to not trivialize emotion. So I know a lot of you are out there thinking, well, we have this practice of emotional design, and we know a lot about it. And it's really about delight. We want to make people happy. And we do that through these little details that we share. And sometimes these details are really great. They're cute. They lift the mood. They give us a kind of happiness halo, right? They take away some of the bad aspects of the design and lend some cheer to the whole thing. The thing is that we have this problem with these delightful details, which is delight has a shelf life. It's called hedonic adaptation. And what once delighted us, like a couple seconds ago, is now starting to get less delightful. And pretty soon it'll get tedious and annoying, and maybe it will trivialize what we're doing or be kind of paternalistic in knowing what's best for us. And delight has kind of coalesced into these cute little characters that we see all the time. And this is not really anything new that we've invented. These are brand mascots, just like Tony the Tiger and, you know, all the characters that we know from, you know, marketing campaigns of yore, the Pillsbury Doughboy, and all of that. And there's a good reason for this, right? They're cute. They don't do bad stuff that you have to explain later, say if your brand mascot is like Bill Cosby or something like that. So there's a plus. But then once we start getting into conversations with them, it gets a little weird because it's like, okay, do we want to be having conversations with brand mascots? How much do we want to design for that kind of emotional attachments? How laid bare do we want our emotions to be in IKEA's experiment where they tried to say like, hey, let's just bring those emotions right up to the surface. So I think what we have to do, and it ends up being kind of trivializing, is to start learning more about emotion and all the variations of it and embrace not just happy emotion, but also some of the darker emotions. What we learn from well-being research is that people feel good when they feel lots of different emotions, and sometimes those emotions are in conflict, and they can tell the difference between those emotions. And a lot of this emotion sensing is pretty reductionist, so I think we, as designers and developers, would do ourselves a favor by understanding all the gradations of sadness. This is a great project, by the way, commissioned by the Dalai Lama, that shows you all the variations within the 5 core emotions. In my own research on what makes people feel good when they're using technology, there were all of these different associated emotions with the word happy, because happy is a big bucket, and English language doesn't have that many positive emotion words, and so we bring all these other concepts with it. And of course, there have been academic attempts to do this as well. Here we're breaking down FOMO. Who knew? It was so complicated. So there are implications of this for design. Also on the back end for supervised AI, because AI is still not going to be that good at emotion. We've got emotion that is complicated, that involves lots of different words, lots of different terms, and we're going to need to be mediating that for the foreseeable future. And that leads me to the next point, which is emotion is context. It's not destination. We have kind of a destination-based approach to emotion and delight. We want to take people from a low and bring them to a high. We also have this other way of designing for an emotional destination. It's called behavioral design, and usually it starts with a bad emotion, like boredom, not quite so bad, or anxiety, and then tries to temporarily make that emotion go away for a little while, make us feel better, so that we get in this kind of habit loop with it. And what's happening now that we're all realizing is that people are starting to feel addicted. So the things that are making them feel better in the moment, like pulling to refresh or continuing to swipe, are actually making them feel like they are out of control. And so we've started designing apps to get off the other apps, like this one, Moment. You have giant rings again. This one is Ringly, and you can wear this ring and you'll get your notifications on the ring, except to see the notification, because it's so hard to see, you have to get the phone, so that's no good. We're redesigning our environments because people are looking down all the time. We have to put a light on the ground instead of in front of them. So this is, imagine emotion layered into this. This is not where we want to go with it. We want to use emotion as a way to understand people, to develop empathy, to create some context. So I think it will mean changing some of our research methods and noting that emotion has all these layers. It has a perceptual layer. We make it in our minds. In other words, there is a physical layer. That's what the emotion sensing technology is detecting. It's social and it's behavioral, and we're going to have to combine emotion sensing with a lot of the techniques that we already use in research. And I think when we're talking about emotion, we're going to have to look at fringe activities like this too. I love this. This poor guy wants to trick the world into having a girlfriend and has got very flexible toes. Yeah, oh, I know. And this came out recently to, I guess, deal with your anger about you could press the ACLU dash button. It's not a real thing. I looked, I wanted one, and donate every time you got mad. But that's a practice for dealing with emotion that we might not see in our normal research. And we might want to give people the tools to play around with it themselves. This is no longer available, but I thought this was a really good experiment to look at that Facebook experiment that we all participated in, where they flipped positive versus negative posts to see how it impacted people's emotion, and learned what we already knew, that emotion was contagious, but now we know it's contagious across social networks. This experiment, called the mood manipulator, lets you tweak that yourself and see how that changes your feed. And maybe we're going to need more tools like that. Certainly, though, I think where we want to end up is giving people the space to actually feel their own emotions and not manipulate those emotions. The last thing I'll give you is emotion is more we than me. So when we think about design, we're always trying to get that to that person, right? That core self. We make personas, we have demographics, we're gathering scads of data to try to determine, like, who is that person that we can then sell stuff to, or advertise stuff to sell stuff to them, or maybe, other things too. But that's really at the core of it. Maybe we think, well, okay, we could use this technology to connect people and emotion for connection, but it's really, really complicated. Like, if we look at our lives right now with technology, it's not just I'm over here offline, and then there's maybe me over here online. It's all mixed up together. It's called cognitive entanglement. And we use technology to extend our abilities. We use it as a proxy. We use it as an avatar. Everyone else is too. And it's a mixed up soup of social emotion and social context. So I think what we're probably going to have to work toward is some other model. We're going to have to give up Maslow, because this could go terribly wrong. I've been looking at emotional intelligence and the way that the model for emotional intelligence accommodates ourselves and other people and looks at not just recognizing emotion, but also regulating it and managing it and tempering it. Because I think, when we think about the future, technology is not going to be rational. It's probably not going to be in the background. It's probably going to be messy. And we're going to be all mixed up together with technology in various ways. I'm hoping that there'll be a little chip back here and I can just go like that. But we'll see if that really happens. That could get messy too. Emotions are not a problem that we can solve. This is going to be hard for us. We're going to have to let go in a lot of ways. So when I look at the future, I'm not sure if I really want this. And I definitely don't want this. Maybe we should start thinking about things like this, especially when it comes to emotion. So, all right, we've all made it this far together. And usually I like to have some kind of activity that bonds us. So I'd love you to put your hand over your heart right now. Take a pledge with me. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
To the rock stars in this room.
To the rock stars in this room.
To my new best friend, Pamela.
To my new best friend, Pamela.
And to the human beings on the other side of our designs.
And to the human beings on the other side of our designs.
That I will respect human emotion.
And I will respect human emotion.
And design responsibly.
And design responsibly.
And with the power vested in me as speaker, wait a second. I want to declare you an awesome audience. Thank you very much.